Welcome to Sound the Horne Sports Show. I'm so excited to host this groundbreaking program that will broaden the Jackson sports scene's awareness regionally and nationally. My goal is to highlight sports in Jackson, the state of Mississippi, and nationally by utilizing my 25 years of Division I athletic administration knowledge, and my guests will be experienced leaders in sports. The guests on the show will share a behind-the-scenes, unique, and informative glance of the world of sports. Please join me every Monday and Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on WeBelieveDigital.com. Welcome to the Sound the Horne Sports Show. We're so excited to have you here today. I'm the host, Derek Horne, and today we have as a guest Dr. Jamil Northcutt, Senior Vice President for Major League Soccer. Jamil, we're so excited to have you here and looking forward to just share this next hour with you.
Great. Well, awesome. Thank you, Derek. Enjoy always getting a chance to see you when I can, but also thanks for having me on the show and look forward to having this conversation today. Thank you.
Well, we're going to jump right into the questions. One thing that I like to do is try and get our listeners and viewers to get a good feel for the guests that we have. So if you would, just tell us a little bit about your hometown, your high school, and a little bit about where you grew up.
Yeah, well, I'm a product of Tullahoma, Tennessee. And I went to Tullahoma High School. You know, parents raised me. My dad, Sammy Northcutt, mother, Teresa Northcutt. They both serve in the ministry as well, but just hardworking people. You know, a lot of people don't know this, but my dad actually integrated the baseball team in my hometown. And so, you know, he's a big man, literally and rhetorically and figuratively, but at the same rate, he's just a great human being who provided for his family. My mother, she's a product of 10 kids in her family. So family is very, very important to us. I've got a brother and a sister. I'm the baby boy in my family. And so just a big family, big hometown. A lot of folks are still around that area. For those of you that don't know where Tullahoma, Tennessee is, it's around the Nashville area in Middle Tennessee. So again, grateful to be here. Shout out to my hometown. My high school football team actually won the state championship this year. So I want to give a shout out to Coach Olive, who's now the athletic director there at Tullahoma High School, was also the head football coach. He coached me during my tenure there, and just a great man, great human being, and I'm really proud of what they were able to accomplish this year.
Well, since you're giving shout outs to my high school won the Class A state championship in Georgia, and my great nephew was a starting tailback. He's going to Georgia Southern. And
wow.
You and I both have a good understanding of what high school means and what experiences that we can get, we can gain from those. And one thing, if you would, tell us about the sports that you participated in high school.
Yeah, I played pretty much everything. You know, I played football. I participated in track, played basketball. I know, Derek, you about 6'7", but your boy can hoop now. I can hoop. I thought that was going to be my thing. You know, my dad, again, I talked about my dad. He played basketball at Middle Tennessee State University, and he played baseball as well. So, you know, he was a two-sport athlete. So I grew up around basketball. That was the first love. At the end of the day, a lot of people don't know that, but he refereed games and was a college basketball official too. And so I played all the sports that were around. I think that's the difference between the times now. You know, if we were to have a conversation about sports and what they mean and the difference between kids now, you know, playing for your hometown team meant something. Now we're in this day and age of club sports and interscholastic activities and whatever they call it, grassroots sports, where, you know, a lot of the shoe companies and people are involved in the game and paying coaches, et cetera. So it's a little bit different dynamics of what my son and my daughters are experiencing now than what I experienced growing up in my hometown.
Well, I kind of agree with you. I think that a lot of our athletes now have injuries because they're focusing just on one sport and they're not as engaged with other sports to really get their body accustomed to the different moves and things that participating in multiple sports would do. I think that's what we see a lot of these injuries and occur because the body takes time to have to develop and get accustomed to those sports, and not playing those multiple sports can be a big challenge. Now, you talked about basketball, and you and I have had this conversation. I'm going to mention a name, and I know it's going to put a smile on your face, and this guy's name is Eric Laird. Tell me
Correct.
what,
That
tell
is
me what
because
kind of impact Eric had on you.
yeah. So as a basketball player in my hometown, we would be on the what I call the real AAU circuit. Now this AAU circuit is whoever has a tournament, you can pay money to get in, and everybody's coming to that. But back then, in AAU, you had your state tournaments, your district tournaments, and your regional tournaments. And so, as a basketball athlete, when I was in 12U, playing 12 and under, my team in my hometown, we got put out. And so, the team who won the state championship, who was in Memphis, Eric being a part of Memphis, and obviously I never knew all these different things until I was able to put them together. And then having gone to the University of Mississippi, you start to realize, okay, wow, this is this big guy who was that dude. So Eric Laird, I got put on his basketball team. They called our region or area district to say who's that guy that we need to put on our team to go to nationals. And so I was recommended. And so I spent, a lot of my time in Memphis, during AAU basketball season, playing with the Memphis Rebels that year. Actually did a lot for me from an athletic perspective. I knew I was always a good athlete, but being able to play on that stage in the national tournament in Salt Lake City, Utah with 12 and under with those guys, because our practices were intense. I mean, we would play 15 and under teams. They didn't care. They were going to put you out there. You was going to hoop. And sometimes they would beat us like 100 to 70, but we would be out there playing against like guys who were NBA ready, et cetera. So it was unique. Great experience for me. Did a lot for my confidence. I can remember coming back from that experience. It got me away from home. I stayed with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Martin, who was in Memphis for a couple months at his house. And so a lot of people took care of me during that particular time in my life, but it also allowed me to grow as a man, a young man, but also as an athlete as well. So just great experience with Eric, played with his son, Eric Jr., Ed Smith was another coach on that team. Coach Cunningham, his son was on there. Just a lot of great guys that even when we started going through high school in Tennessee, even though I was in Middle Tennessee, I was always keeping up with my teammates who were playing for Bartlett, were playing for Memphis White Station, playing for Memphis East, et cetera. So I always had that connection with those individuals because of that experience that we had in participating in the national tournament in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Well, one thing that we can always attest to is this: sports have unique relationships that they build. And Eric and I were teammates for 3 years, and I tell people, playing in the SEC, they asked me who was the toughest person I ever had to guard. And they would always think it's opponents, but I had to guard Eric every day. And Eric probably was one of the best athletes that you would ever see. He was All-American football player, All-American track, All-American basketball. But he had a work ethic that was unreal. And I know you and I have had conversations about him, and I just want to recognize him because he was that kind of guy. And we miss him now. He's passed on, but he still have a living legacy, not only at Ole Miss, but I know they're in Memphis as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
In high school, who were some of the toughest players you faced?
Oh man, shoot! The list could go on and on. But some of the folks that were in my class, I wouldn't call them nemesis, but we were always very competitive. One has passed on this past year that really had an impact on me. It's really tough. In Santonio Beard, and so he was a two-time Mr. Football in the state of Tennessee. Went to Pearl Cone, who was a rival. We ended up beating this year, but they beat us in my senior season to knock us out of the playoffs. And but Santonio was that guy. You had folks that played with him, Big John Henderson. They had other folks that were on that squad in Pearl Cone, which were really, really good. But Santonio was probably one of the toughest players that I saw. Tremaine Turner, he could run the rock too. He played at Springfield. He also played at Ole Miss with me. We were in the same signing class. Great person, great individual. There was folks like Eric Locke from Murfreesboro, Riverdale, who could get it. He was a two-time Mr. Football. They were in 5A, but when we would scrimmage those types of teams, they were really good. You had a person named Luke Powell, who ended up signing with Stanford, was a kick returner, All-American. He was from Smyrna. And so during that particular time period, there's just a lot of athletes in the state of Tennessee who were doing big things that were really, really, really good. But those are some of the names that I can come up with. I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out. So if I am, I apologize. But we had a lot of great players who were there. I had to give a shout out to my cousin, Cameron Howard, who was on my team. But Cameron was an unbelievable athlete, probably one of the best athletes I've ever saw in my life. I used to hold his blocks on the track team. So, I mean, he would win the state in the 100, the 200, long jump, high jump. I mean, just was a phenomenal athlete. Won the Pan-American Games in high school. Was just a great athlete. And so he was instrumental in a lot of the things that happened in my life because he was such a great athlete. When the recruiting thing started, then a lot of folks were coming to see him. So his athletic ability opened the door for me. And then we also had other athletes from my hometown, like DeJuan Brazelton, who's a phenomenal athlete, kind of like a family member because of our unique relationship and things that we went through coming up or growing up. But he was the number 1 overall pick in the Major League Baseball draft. Well, excuse me, the number 3 pick. A number 3 overall pick in the Major League Baseball draft. Phenomenal athlete, played Major League Baseball for like 10 or 11 years. And I've got cousins, like even right now, Jordan Sheffield and Justice Sheffield. They're pitching in the majors right now. They're from my hometown of Tullahoma. Just phenomenal athletes. But their dad, a lot of people don't talk about their dad, Travis. So he was a phenomenal athlete. And then his cousin, Tony, he got drafted in Major League Baseball. So there's tons of athletes that come from my hometown. A lot of folks don't get a lot of credit, but, you see people all the time and you salute them because of who they are and what they were able to accomplish.
Well, I like what you did to recognize those folks. And when we're athletes and we have an opportunity to play at the different levels, we still have to make sure that we recognize those people that pushed us, that gave us that start and also gave us that competitive edge. For us to be so successful. And one thing I wanted to kind of ask you was, how did your high school career prepare you for college?
Yeah, I think it was one of those things, you played multiple sports. I was have always kind of been a leader, so was in a leadership position, even as a younger player. But, I had an older brother. So, my older brother was really, really good, Jamal. And so he was always that guy. And so I can remember my first game I played in high school. We were playing against a rival school in Franklin County. And so they had to find a place for me to be on the field. So I'm playing defensive end. My brother's playing defensive tackle. We right beside each other. And so the first couple plays of the game, I jump off sides twice. And so the coaches are like, y'all need to get him out of there. And my coach, he told me this later on. He was like, no, we're not taking Jamil out of the game because he makes plays. But my brother was cussing me out. He was like, boy, stop jumping off sides. Like you messing this thing up. And so once we settled down, we ended up beating the school and kind of turning the tide. They would beat us a couple of years, but being around him, having an older brother was so great because I always had somebody to play with. But, a lot of people don't know my freshman year in basketball, I played on the varsity. Well, I never played with younger kids that were my age because if I had a brother that was 2 years older than me, that you had to get in where you fit in. And so my brother, I want to give him a lot of credit. He taught me how to catch. I can remember being in the yard with him and throwing the baseball. He taught me how to catch a baseball because sometimes I would turn away and would be scared of it. And he would say, Jamil, stop turning your head from the ball. I vividly remember those times with him and playing sports, always having a brother to play video games with. I mean, we rarely played video games. We were always outside. And so it didn't matter what sport it was during that particular time frame, but we were going to get it in, whether it was baseball, football, basketball, soccer, whatever. We were going to make sure that we had a good time and that we had each other as brothers growing up.
Well, I think that when you talk about how you were raised, and I can recall being a family athlete. My father played college football. My mother played college basketball. My sister was a heck of an athlete. And I think sometimes what people don't realize, you become a better athlete by visualization. So you see it, and then you can kind of go out there and try and act on it. And I think what is missed a lot is what you just said. Our kids need to get outside. They need to go outside and play. They need to try other things. They need to learn how to do these things before you go try out, before you play. I can vividly remember my father showed me how to run, which that might sound funny, but the better your mechanics, the faster you can run. And also when you talked about the passing, uh, if you didn't keep your eye on the ball, he would throw that ball and hit you right between the eyes. So you had to make sure that you learn to get those hands up. Well, we
That's
get
right. I
to
mean,
the end.
those are the things.
Yeah. We get to the end of our first quarter. We're going to go ahead and give some recognition to our sponsors, and we'll come back and continue this conversation with Dr. Jamil Northcutt.
Do you have something to say? Do you want your voice heard? Join the We Believe Global lineup. Be the star of your own show. For more info, call 800-492-5186, option number 1, or visit online at webelieve.global. Advertise on WeBelieve.global, a brand new digital media platform. Share your brand with our audience on our many global live stream TV broadcasts and over the radio. For more info, visit WeBelieve.global or call 800-492-5186, option 1.
Welcome back to the second quarter with Dr. Jamil Northcutt. We've had a great conversation talking about the high school days, and now we're going to move into college a little bit. And if you would, maybe just kind of share with us some of the reasons why you chose Ole Miss to attend college.
Well, I know I brought up earlier about, my relationship with my cousin Cameron Howard and how great of an athlete he was. I can remember, a lot of college coaches coming in town. So not only did we have Cameron, but we had another individual by the name of Robert Matthews. And so Steve Matthews, who played quarterback at the University of Tennessee at the time, well, not at the time, but his brother, he was the brother of Robert. And so he had a great connection and played in the NFL for a number of years as well. But anyway, Cameron made all the plays, and Robert could throw it really, really well. So a lot of colleges were looking at them. So obviously I would pop up on tape because, I was knocking people out in a good way. And so, but I can remember Coach Cutcliffe coming to visit Cameron often, talked to him about coming to the University of Tennessee. And obviously Coach Cutcliffe got the job to go to Ole Miss in 1998 when the University of Tennessee won the national championship. He took the job to come to Ole Miss, and in 1999, I ended up signing with Ole Miss because he had been recruiting me for a couple of years, and we had built a relationship and rapport as a result of his relationship with Cameron. Obviously, the things that I was doing on the field, et cetera, the UT was interested. I was Mr. Football in the state of Tennessee my last year. So that's what led me to Ole Miss, obviously with prayer and things of that nature. But I felt a little bit comfortable with coming to Ole Miss as a result of my relationship with David Cutcliffe.
Well, you brought up a great point that being a highly recruited athlete, and I know you were, and as I was as well, I think sometimes teammates don't understand how they can make themselves a little bit more visible. Just as you said, he was coming to Coach Cutcliffe was recruiting some other players, but he saw you. And I like to try and share with those prospective student athletes, don't be disgruntled if you don't think you're getting attention. You don't know who's watching. And a lot of times coaches watch when you don't think they're watching. So it's always good to be on point at all times. And I think that was a great point that you brought up about Coach Cutcliffe being in Tennessee, but then when he went to Ole Miss, he saw you and was able to put you on the charts because he knew who you were. And I'm pretty sure you were just as good off the field as well as on the field, and those things were attractive as well. And what I'd like for you to do right now is maybe share a little bit about some highlights from your time at Ole Miss, some of the things that just kind of stand out to you.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people want to talk about the playing side. And, you know, I realized that, you know, and that's important. So, we played with a lot of great people, you know, the Deuce McAllisters of the world, the Derek Burgesses of the world. I think about our offensive line, they were fantastic. You know, Todd Wade, two-time Reyes. You know, we had, Ben Claxton, like all these guys were in the NFL, Terrence Metcalf. And that was like the older group. You know, I'm a young freshman. These are upperclassmen. But then you've got a younger group that came in, you know, your Trey Stallings, your Chris Spencers, you know, folks like that were a part of, our legacy, at Ole Miss. But I think, I met my wife at the University of Mississippi. And so that's a major thing. The Bible says a man that finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. So I'm always grateful for Kim and our relationship and how we met there. I was able to meet you, Derek, and I can remember, you kind of gave me an introduction into sports, because I was searching about what I wanted to do. I started out as a pre-med student, did that for a couple of years, not sure why I was thinking about doing that, probably living out somebody else's dreams, but was interested, say, I really don't want to do this. I'm more interested in sports, trying to look at the orthopedic route, looking at physical therapy, et cetera. And then I remember doing the practicum with you, and it kind of opened the door for me to see that I could have a career working in athletics or working in sports. And so that's significant about my time. My fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, I'm a legacy. My dad pledged at MTSU Eta Gamma. And so he's, spring at 73. And so, he's an old head, what they call an old head. So, I grew up watching that, and being able to have that presented to me when I was at the University of Mississippi was something that's great, and so my fraternity brothers, my teammates, more than the plays and accolades, I was able to win the Chucky Mullins Award, which is a big deal in the state of Mississippi. And so I'm grateful for that. But the people that I was able to encounter, like yourself, my teammates, that I still communicate with to this day, those are some of the things that I cherish a lot about my experience at the University of Mississippi. My professors, the teachers, education is very, very important to me. And sometimes when you are a student athlete or an athlete student, however you want to quote it, because I felt like we were athlete students when I played, but I really got a chance to have a great experience when I came back to the university and was able to finish my doctorate degree, because that was like the first time that I really felt like I could engage in education and not be worried about athletics and playing. I was able to really focus on learning and really, indulge in that experience. So those are the memories that I cherish with me. And, I learned a lot being at the university, and just through not just the good times, but some adversity, that I faced with playing sports and not being a starter, at certain points in times, but also working with my teammates, helping them prepare. And also as an administrator, there were some things that I went through as an administrator that were challenging around some of the racial overtones and dynamics associated with it. But, you learn how to manage politics. You learn how to move, maneuver in this society, and you understand how to get business done and be good at what you do in spite of what is out there. You learn how to do your job, do it well, and get along with people. Those are some of the memories that I have about the University of Mississippi.
Well, the Chucky Mullins Award is very unique. And if you would, just kind of share with us how you felt when you were recognized to wear the 38 for the year, and then kind of tell us how you felt the responsibility was to live up to that Chucky Mullins standard.
Yeah, it's a major responsibility. It's a courage award. For those of you who don't know who Chucky Mullins is, he was paralyzed in the Vanderbilt Ole Miss game years ago. And so he had this spirit about him to never quit. And so that's something that was built in me a long time ago. I can remember a story, it's really not a story, but it's a time. I'm telling you a story about a time where my dad picked me up from one of my practices, and we had a small little red shift truck. And I can remember we were in the parking lot of the baseball stadium in Tullahoma. And for some reason, I got in the truck. I don't know if my dad was going through something at the time, but he said something to me, and he meant it, and it got in me. I feel like he stuck his hand in my heart and put something in there at the time. But it was an impartation, so to speak. And he told me, he said, son, don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't do anything. And to this day, if there's anything that my dad told me, I have always taken that to heart, and it's really, really serious. So basically, that's what Chucky Mullins means. It's like, he had this great adversity that he had to overcome. And, he just said he wasn't never going to quit. And so in spite of being paralyzed, he had a great attitude every day. In spite of the adversity that he faced every day, he got up with a different mindset than others did to accomplish his goals, no matter what they were. And so to me, that's what that award means. And I'm thankful and grateful that our coaches and our players saw fit for me to be honored with that. And that's something that, I still carry that same attitude to this day, no matter what environment I'm in. One is doing right by people and trying to advance humanity. But the second piece is to approach my life in a manner of aggression, with intensity and with a passion and love for not only what I get a chance to do, but more importantly, it's the gratefulness and being thankful every day for the opportunity that I get to be able to serve others and provide for my family, and to also live my best life, man. You know what I mean? Like, we get a chance to do what we do every day. And so why not enjoy our lives? John 10:10 tells us, and not to get biblical on you guys, but it says, we got a choice, basically. We got a choice. He said that God came that we may have life and may have it more abundantly. We know what the enemy comes to do, to steal, kill, and destroy. But again, we want to approach our lives in a manner where we can live life and live it more abundantly. And so I try to focus on that B part of that scripture, just to make sure that I'm focused right, and that I'm approaching life in a different mentality, and not being down in the dumps because something happens. In essence, we got to command our cognitive and make sure that we have our mind right to approach each and every day.
One thing that we have any younger prospective student athletes or athletes that are in college right now, what advice can you share with them on how you can balance athletics and academics?
Yeah, I'd say, you need to lay out your goals and your priorities, because again, you'll have people that say they want to do certain things, but then they don't have the strategies and tactics in order to manage those. So somebody say, I want to be a B student, but then, okay, that's your goal. Well, what are your strategies and tactics to accomplish that goal? Are you going to study a certain amount of time? Are you going to read 10 to 15 minutes a day? You need to be able to write the vision and make it plain. And so a lot of times young people, they just are all over the place. You get up and think that things are going to happen without employing some type of a strategy or tactic and trying to meet your goal. When you play sports, you generally will get there because you got a regimen. And so being able to establish a routine, and really it's about discipline. If you can discipline yourself to put yourself in position to do whatever it is that you want to do. But I would say that the number one thing is to write a vision for yourself. A lot of times we don't think about what we want to do. And in order to be good in sports and also to be good off the field, you got to start writing out what it is that you want to accomplish and what you want to do. And then also I think, they need to spend more time outside of sport. And so we keep talking about this balance, that doesn't exist. I heard one of my colleagues at a conference talk about, throw balance out the window. Let's talk about having a blend because it all's got to blend together. And you need to try to have a healthier blend to your life. So I think it's important for athletes to look outside of sport. I feel like, in my research and my data and study that I've seen, that athletes feel isolated, so you spend so much time at the football facility or the basketball facility or the soccer facility that you really don't take time to yourself to get outside of that realm of isolation and to go integrate into campus a little bit more. And so I think those are some good things that will allow athletes to have a better balance if they were able to kind of step outside of that realm a little bit, meet some other people, diversify, yourself. It's like we do with our finances. You're not going to put all your eggs in one basket, but you need to diversify your funds so that you can have some growth. Because again, that's what we're after. How do we grow as human beings? So in order for your portfolio to be bigger, you need to expand it.
Well, I think you hit on some great points, and I like that blending because so many times we think about balance, but at the end of the day, balance can maybe only last for a few seconds because something else is going to happen. So if you can blend and find a way to leverage and maximize. I was listening to a song earlier today, and they talk about in relationships where you do 50-50. No, you don't. You do 100% on both sides.
That's right.
So you have to go at your academic side just as hard as your athletic side. And I can relate to what you're saying, being a former student athlete. And I think sometimes when they focus on one thing as an athlete, that ball is going to go flat. And then when it goes flat, what is going to be your next your next plan? And if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a foundation, and academics is truly as a foundation, when you have that foundation, then you want to blame it on everybody else, but the person that you need to point a finger at is yourself, because you were given an opportunity, you were given time, you were given space to do what you need to, but you only decided to focus on one side. And when academics are part of the mission that you have, you need to make sure that you can blend that in because what you're learning is life lessons. It's not just a lesson to be a better athlete. You're learning how to be a better person. Time management, discipline, sacrifice, teamwork, all those things are what major corporations are looking for. And if you keep them inside and harnessed on the inside, you're not going to be the person that is going to be attractive to others. And as we get ready to transition into our commercial here, hold that thought, Jamil, put a pin in it. We're going to take a little time to go ahead and have a shout out for our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
SGECOVIDsolutions.com is paving the way forward for a safer city government, delivering cutting-edge biosecurity and biosafety protocols developed internationally by top virologists and scientists using an all-natural cleaning solution, killing COVID-19 on contact like no other product on the international market. For more information, please call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at SGECOVIDsolutions.com. Let SGECOVIDsolutions.com provide innovative rapid facilities testing and world-class state-of-the-art biorisk safety protocols for all of your coronavirus needs. Call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at SGECOVIDsolutions.com.
Do you have something to say? Do you want your voice heard? Join the We Believe Global lineup. Be the star of your own show. For more info, call 800-492-5186, option number 1, or visit online at webelieve.global.
Welcome back to the Sound the Horse Sports Show. We're coming out of halftime and get ready to go into the third quarter. And what we're going to do, we're going to take that pen out of that conversation and let Jamil kind of discuss a little bit more about the education portion, so we can make sure that the points that he wants to express can be heard. Jamil?
Yeah, so I know when we left the last segment, we talked about, the educational piece and the importance of that. I think it's really, really important to talk about, education, particularly from a standpoint of relating it back to sports. Right now, the hot topic of the day is analytics, right? There's this big conversation around analytics. And I think if athletes were really looking at the numbers and looking at the data who were coming to college, you would see that those analytics have not changed. There's still data points. 100% of all athletes will experience career termination. So at some point in time, we understand, as you mentioned earlier, that your career is going to end. And so what are you doing to prepare for that? And we all know, based off of the research and data that's out there, athletic role identity is real. Identity foreclosure is real. These are phenomenons that really impact the mental health of an athlete, with them transitioning out of the game. There's a theoretical framework called transition theory that's really, really important, that I think it's important for parents to hear this, because we all are dealing with life. And the theory definition is any event or non-event that results in these changes in relationships, assumptions, roles, and routines. We all experience them. But for the athlete, what happens is there's an expected event. I want to get drafted to the NFL. The draft is coming up this year. I want to play soccer. Or I want to get drafted to the NBA or Major League Baseball. But we forget the data around that of how many people go on from these particular sports, and even from high school to Division I schools. I mean, it's not a lot. You got like 250 draft slots in the NFL. And it's not a high percentage. So some folks that are participants trying to go pro, in baseball, that's under 10%, and these are like D1 athletes. For folks in men's basketball, it's like 1.2%. Women's basketball is like 0.8%. Football is under 2%. It's like 1.6. Ice hockey is around 7%. So it's not a lot of athletes that are turning pro. And so you definitely have to look at other things from an academic perspective, but just not academic, but from a relational perspective. One of the things that universities, I don't feel like do a great job on is teaching individuals how to build relationships, connect with people so they can have an opportunity, but also what gifts do you have that you can bring to the table that will translate well for you to be able to get into a job. So I think those things are important when it comes to the educational portion. But I think as we take like this analytical approach to going forward on fourth down, or should I guard this man in the paint more so, or let him shoot outside, let's pay attention.
I think the thing that is so that needs to be said is sports are glamorized a lot, and I think with that glamorization, we lose sight of what reality is. And you brought up some great numbers on the number of people that do go pro in every sport. And I do like the NCAA's commercial where they said 99% of the student athletes will go pro in something other than sports. And I truly think, and you can attest to this as an athlete, sometimes we try as institutions to try and shelter them or try and put them in a box so we can control them, but I think they can produce better when you give them an opportunity to use their critical thinking skills. If you only use your critical thinking skills on the field or the court, when you leave that comfortable environment, you can't be successful because you're putting them in an environment they're not comfortable with. I do think that the Chance Life Skills program that you and I were very involved with, I think they need to be embraced on campuses, because it forces student athletes to have a good understanding of your time is running out. The clock is running out. What are you going to do when the clock runs or gets to zero? And you and I have seen this a number of times with athletes. They're so challenged by what am I going to do next? But when you come in as a freshman, you should already know what you're going to do the day you become a senior. When your eligibility is up, you need to have that plan. And we need to continue telling our students that, because I've been as an administrator, and I like to share this from a perspective of a Power 5 or PWI in HBCU. It's a little different for student athletes at HBCUs because they don't have all of those tools to have them or prepare them for competition or even academics. So they have to work a little harder. So I do think that, and I might have a little bias because for the past 10 years I've worked in that arena, I think they're a little bit more prepared because they've been forced to do those things where some things are given to student athletes, and sometimes when you get it for free, it doesn't stick like when you have to work for it. And if you would like to chime in.
So I don't necessarily know if it's you're getting it for free, because they're put in an arena where they've got to work. I think what's out of whack is when we talk about pay for play model. It's not about athletes receiving resources, but I think what's out of whack is it's a win at all costs ethos that's going on right now. And so we can pay a coach a certain amount of money. And again, not hating on anybody, get your bread, So when it comes down to everybody getting their money, then let's have an honest conversation about equality around that and making sure we're compensating the athlete appropriately based off of what they're given. That being said, I think when we talked about this balance piece in sport, I think where we've lost that is, but because we're paying a coach a certain amount of money, the expectation is that because I want to continue to make that amount of money, this kid, it's dependent upon this kid doing what I need him to do, though. And so now that becomes the focus. Instead of you going over here to do X, I need you here focused at practice. And so the carrot that we dangle in front of the athlete is we want you to achieve this NFL status, et cetera. And that's what we're trying to drive value towards. And so it's like, when I used to see the mannequins in the hallway with all of the NFL jerseys and everybody playing the league, I would always ask, where's the mannequin of graduation? Where's the mannequin with the cap and the gown on? And what are some of the athletes that we have? What are they doing in other sectors? We need to continue to highlight that too. It may not necessarily be as sexy as the league, but I guarantee you some parents want to see where guys are going, because again, it comes back to the data. It comes back to the data. And at the end of the day, too, one of the things that I want all sports organizations to realize is that you can have a critical succession plan around your athletes. They're the next coaches, they're the next administrators. And so being able to look at the events that you're doing, being able to figure out ways to have them develop your whole entire ecosystem is something that you need to be looking at, because it's essentially it's a gold mine. These are the folks that are coming back into your system. When you talk about transition theory, as well as I mentioned earlier, folks are always moving in, moving through, and moving out. At the same rate, you want to be able to move your athletes back into your ecosystem. So there's ways for you to have your alumni and people around to connect with certain aspects of the game and sport, to be able to allow your sports entities, whatever the sport is, to continue to grow and flourish. And I think a lot of times we don't look at it from that perspective. I used to tell the folks at Ole Miss, okay, it's very important for your M Club members, your active M Club members who are participating as student athletes. It's important for them to graduate, because you're going to want them to donate back to the M Club. And if they don't have a job and they don't have no money and resources, then it's going to eventually die out. So it's within your best interest to make sure that they're educated, and more importantly than educated, well prepared. Making sure that they're well prepared for what is ahead, and that they are successful and that they had a good experience there, so that they will want to help support what you're doing now and in the future.
One thing that you touched on, and you have a unique perspective. You worked in the SEC, you worked on campus, and then you've also worked with the NCAA. And a lot of things that are chiming out right now, two different things is name, image, and likeness, and also the transfer portal. So if you could maybe give me some insight into kind of name, image, and likeness first, and then kind of talk a little bit about the transfer portal and give me your thoughts on those.
Yeah, so I love all of it. A lot of people I see right now are trying to get out of college athletics. Some of my colleagues that I've been around, because they're talking about, that it's madness right now because nobody knows how to deal with it. Well, I've been in pro sports for a number of years, so it's part of it. Collective bargaining agreements, group licensing, that's part of what we do, on a day-to-day basis. So you have to figure out ways to work with athletes. I love the NIL piece because I feel like it gives athletes a chance to start looking at certain things. However, anytime you do anything, there's always unintended consequences. And that's what folks are dealing with right now as it relates to NIL. They do have to put some regulations around it because it's going to give some people some advantages. But at the same rate, too, if we're being honest with ourselves, some entities have always had advantages. And so those things will continue. And we see that in game guarantees and how much money folks are paying to play people for games, and folks who have the resources to do that, et cetera. So, that conversation is one that I fully embrace and think that we've got to start coming up with strategies, and we've got to lean into the business part of it. I don't feel like people are leaning into the business part. We keep trying to figure out how not to do it. But I think if we just come full force into it and say, okay, well, how can we make money for everybody? Then I think we'll get some better outcomes. I think the athletes will be compensated according to what they do and what they provide university campuses. And also think we need to tell the truth. We need to talk about how revenue is generated and who generates that revenue. Because I think that's where the disconnect is, because we bring up a lot of issues around Title IX, et cetera. Not that I want to go down a rabbit trail of that, but I think we've got to have an honest conversation about that too, because there's some inequities in that. We know the major revenue generators on a college campus are football and basketball. That's the truth. And so if we tell the truth, I think the truth will make us free. Then we can come up with some solutions of how to manage, all of the sports across the spectrum. Because from where I sit, I would always see what these young men and women were doing, particularly Black young men and women were doing on the field, and how it was compensating everybody and how it was providing for everybody. And then at the end of the day, we wasn't really being honest about that and really having a conversation about what that needs to look like and what it's doing. And so once we begin to tell the truth about these issues, I think that's when we can start coming up with some critical solutions. Having worked at the conference office level and also at the NCAA level, you get a chance to see some things behind the curtain, and you get a chance to see some things that you're pleased with. There's some hardworking people that work at these conference offices as well as, these national offices to keep things afloat. They don't get enough credit with a lot of the things that they deal with. That are unscrupulous, to be quite frank with you, excuse me. But, it's just they work hard and they're able to try to come up with ways and solutions and strategies to adjudicate problems that exist within the membership, et cetera. So, my perspective, again, is just different. I do feel like, the NCAA, sometimes they lean more towards trying to allow the membership to make some decisions. But I do think that there's a way to be able to be creative and to be an industry leader, again, and leaning into the business conversation about what can be done to generate revenue for the entire enterprise, because there's a lot of money out there we're seeing it. Pocketbooks are opening up. Corporate entities are wanting to pay individuals to market their products. I think it's good for athletes. It's not just about can you play? That plays into it, but there's brand awareness. When I was in school, I was a great public speaker. And so FCA was getting me to go out to speak to different churches and things of that nature all the time. Nobody gave me gas money. Nobody was providing anything for me during those particular points in time. So I do think we need to fully embrace the conversation, tell the truth about people's experiences so we can find some solutions to manage it and to kind of move athletics forward, particularly within the college realm.
Well, I appreciate that, because I think that was a great way to give an explanation on the state of college athletics at this time. And what we're going to do, we're going to come back in the fourth quarter when we finish out. I still want to hear a little bit about the transfer portal from you. So right now we're going to hear from our sponsor. We'll be right back to talk a little bit about that transfer portal.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have something to say? Do you want your voice heard? Join the We Believe Global lineup. Be the star of your own show. For more info, call 800-492-5186, option number 1, or visit online at webelieve.global.
We're here with Dr. Jamil Northcutt, and we've had some very good dialogue, and we're going to do our best to finish out this fourth quarter strong. And ending up the third quarter, we talked a little bit about the transfer portal, but I wanted Dr. Northcutt to give us a little bit more insight and give us, some of observation that you've seen since the transfer portal has been established.
Yeah, so, we see what's going on in the transfer portal. We see this in youth sports right now. My son's 11 years old. What's happening is everybody's trying to find the right team to play with, the best team that they can put their son on et cetera, or their daughter. And so I think, those things are transitioning up to what we're doing now. I think the original intent of transfer legislation, I was at the NCAA when this stuff was passing, was to give athletes, a fair opportunity to make a decision about where they want to be. And so I think it's good in that it provides that. But again, as with all things, there are always unintended consequences. I do think there's a generation of athletes who don't want to deal with adversity, but I also think there's a generation of athletes who are like, you're not going to treat me any kind of way either. So we've all been a part working in sports and athletics where coaches will have a 1 year, scholarship that needs to be renewed every year. And so when a coach decides that they want to non-renew a kid, they can. And when the coach decides that he wants to run somebody off because he's got another recruit that he thinks is better and the kid has done great. I mean, great student, great athlete, he hadn't done anything wrong. And then sometimes, coaches try to find problems with him. And so I think these things give athletes an opportunity to make a decision. They might have realized, hey, I didn't make the right choice in choosing this right school. It's not a good fit for me. I don't fit in. I don't really like it. And so they should have an opportunity to transfer without penalty. However, I think when it comes to ball, and I say ball that's strong because it sometimes it's all about playing ball, folks are making decisions based off of that because we put so much emphasis on it. There's been so much time spent on getting to this point and also trying to achieve that goal that, again, you have athletic role identity foreclosure, not only in the athletes, but also in the coaches, because if they don't win, they're going to lose their job. They're going to be terminated. And so it creates this pressure cooker where everybody's trying to get what they want at the same rate, too. I can remember, when I was talking to the NCAA before I left the National Football League to join them, I was telling them that I could see a trend coming where, college athletics was going to start to become like pro football, meaning that you're going to have these college scouting departments and you're going to have these pro personnel departments. And now you're seeing it manifest within the transfer portal. Coaches don't have to sign a kid out of high school. I can just wait to see a kid who's already developed, who may not be happy, who's been in the college system for a while, or a kid that's already played. He's made the All-American team or the All-Conference team, and I'm going to bring him to fill in the spot here where we can just plug and play and we're ready to go. I got more of a seasoned person. And so what that's doing is taking away from the generation coming up with them having to sign younger players. And so those are some of the unintended consequences about it. But there's a part of it that I like. There's also a part of it that I don't like as it relates to, athletes being able to be committed in the place. But at the same rate, too, I like it because it challenges that ideology that a coach is always committed to you, because the reality of it is that they're not.
Well, I've been around sports a while. And one thing that I do like the transfer portal. I think that if a coach can decide to say, I'm going to take my talent somewhere else, a student athlete should have that same opportunity and not be penalized for it. On the downside, unintended consequences, this becomes a policy when you had a pandemic as well. So now you have a backlog of kids that can play an additional year. You have kids now that are staying in junior college longer, and you're having some high school players having to go to junior college now that might have been able to go to a 4-year school because the portal gives them an opportunity to get what they consider more seasoned athletes. And I have an example of that. My nephew, who I said did real well all year long, one of the top rushers in the state of Georgia, had an awesome state championship game. In fact, he broke Herschel Walker's rushing record. And a lot of people thought that he probably should have waited around to try and see if other offers were coming in. I talked to my niece and I told her, I'm going to tell you something. This portal is a beast. If he has an offer, he might want to go ahead and get that inked in. And I always tell students, go to who has been with you the longest. If somebody comes in the last minute, they're trying to fill a spot. And I just think that the transfer portal will level out. If you take a look at the analytics, there are more people in the portal than there are opportunities. So sooner or later, some of those folks will decide I might want to stay where I am. As an administrator, I've had young men from mid-majors try and go into the portal, and you want to tell them, son, I'm gonna tell you something. The best you might get might be mid-major. Uh, Stay here where you have some experience. Stay here where you develop a body of work. But you can only share that advice with them. You can't make them stay. So I do think it's going to balance out. I do like what you said both about uh, NIL and also the transfer portal. There's some unintended consequences. And when the unintended consequences happen for somebody that's running a cab company, you don't hear too much about that. But when you're in sports, you have more networks talking about sports than you do about things that happen on a daily basis. So it's going to be over magnified. But next 2 to 3 years, I think it'll balance itself out. But then we'll have another policy that comes up that's going to give us some more unintended consequences. So
correct. We hadn't even talked about how this happened. We hadn't even talked about how this happened at the interscholastic level. It's reclassification. You've got kids holding kids back or parents holding kids back to be, in a different grade so that they can have a recruiting advantage later on. So you experience that all the time. We go to these AAU tournaments all the time and you look at kids, you're like, man, no way. This kid is not 11 or 12 and under, but they might have had a late birthday or whatever. But, it is what it is. Again, I told you earlier, I grew up with an older brother. So I tell my son, if they out there, go get after they in. Like, let's go. Time to play. Don't matter how old they are. You go attack. Be on the offense and be ready to play.
Well, you've had a great career, and you've been able to navigate from being on the collegiate level to working in 2 different professional sports environments. So we have a little time left in this fourth quarter. So if you would share a little bit about your NFL experience working at the headquarters, and then we'll kind of close out and share a little bit about what you are doing right now with Major League Soccer.
Yeah, so throughout my career, I've had a chance to be in some different places. I worked for the Kansas City Chiefs for a number of years with Dick Vermeil and Herman Edwards and Carl Peterson as the GM, some other individuals that were there, Ray Farmer, Lamont Winston, as well as Bill Kuharich. And then I left and came back to Ole Miss, but then I ended up going back to the NFL to work for the Cleveland Browns for Ray Farmer as the GM there, and was there for a couple of years. And then I transitioned to a role to be a director of football administration at the NFL office. And then obviously worked at the NCAA. And then I came on a path to be one of our VPs here with Major League Soccer. The one common denominator in all of that is people and relationships. And so people who were in the football circle are closely connected, closely related, et cetera. And so it doesn't really matter. In Major League Soccer, our owners, one of the founders of Major League Soccer was Lamar Hunt. Well, that's my first full-time job was with the Kansas City Chiefs. So I knew Mr. Hunt back then. I knew Clark back then. We had the Kansas City Wizards who were connected with us then. And then as I'm here in Major League Soccer, a common connection in meeting with the commissioner was Oliver Luck, who was at the NCAA at the time, and he's got strong football ties to the NFL because our commissioner worked at the NFL before, et cetera. And so, again, life is really about relationships and connections and opportunity, but also having transferable skills. And so being able to have those skills, I've done a lot throughout my career. People talk about that quote, you're a jack of all trades, but you're a master of none. But people forget what the quote really says. It says, but you're a jack of all trades, but you're a master of none. But the one who's a jack of all trades is better than the master of one. And so like that finishes the quote out. So, I feel like in my career, and basically what they're saying, it's a compliment. It's a compliment to say that if you've done multiple things, you're versatile, you've got skills, and you can work in different sectors. And so not to brag or anything like that, I'm really more grateful for the opportunities, and I'm more thankful to people who poured into me, who've given me a chance, and that's allowed me to see multiple things from different vantage points and perspectives. And that's kind of helped me transition into different sectors, in and out of college, into pro, looking at this opportunity here or there, and being able to work. But more importantly, is being able to make a difference in people's lives and help people's dreams come true. When I work with my people day to day at our office and at our staff, a lot of times I've done their job. And so having done their job, I know what they need and what they want, and I can help them achieve that. And so there's no greater satisfaction than to helping people achieve their goals, and kind of live out their dreams.
Well, and technology is something else. My phone is trying to jump off. I do apologize that. Uh, One thing that I wanted to share is it's very rare that you have individuals on that you visit with and you know. And I've seen you grow. And if there's anything that I can say that you epitomize is relationships. And relationships have gotten you where you are and will continue to get you where you're going. And I would like for you to share a little bit about how would you share with somebody that's trying to get, because you and I get called all the time about how do I get into business? And what can you do to share on how they could put a plan together to have that opportunity to move and navigate in the arenas that you've navigated in?
Yeah, I think it's, one, you got to be a good person. And so I think you never can shy away from that. I've got one of my mentors, Kerry Casey, taught me a quote one time. He said, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And so being able to be a good person, it's the golden rule, doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. But it's also about giving. A lot of times people in relationships, they take and they don't give. And so if you come to a person and you meet somebody and you're approaching that relationship of how can you help them and how can you give to them, and trust me, people are going to abuse you and they're going to take from you all the time. But you'll realize when those relationships are not reciprocal, and then you can shy away from that. But if you give to other people and you mean well and you really want them to succeed, you're not just always trying to get something from them, but you're trying to bring something to a relationship, a gift to somebody, then that's what's going to open the door. And it's not doing it from a position of being phony and fake. It's authenticity and being genuine about what you're doing. And so if I could tell anybody that, that's the one thing. But then when you get relationships, you got to manage it with care. You have to be diligent in who you're connecting with, giving of your time, calling in to check in with people. It's not always calling to want something. Man, how are you doing? If you see stuff that's out there that people are going through, reaching out, checking on them, giving them an encouraging word. It doesn't have to be anything out of the ordinary. It's just about following up, just checking in with people. Because again, we're living life. We're living life, and life is not always easy. People go through transitions. It's tough times. It's good times. We're on this roller coaster. And so people need others to be able to endure on this journey. And so being able to keep that into your mind every day and to encourage people, that's what's going to end up helping you. And then when opportunity presents itself, you got to be skillful too. You can't just be a person out here that doesn't have skill. There's an ecclesiastical passage in Ecclesiastes 10:10. It says, if the axe is dull and its edge unsharpened, more strength is needed, but skill will bring success. If you're skillful at what you're doing, it's going to open the door. It's a proverb. And again, sorry, the stuff just starts coming up. It says a gift will make room for you and bring you before great men. And so that's what you want to be. If you're gifted and you're talented, you want to continue to sharpen your axe. At the same rate too, you want to also utilize your abilities to help other people advance. And if you do that, you're sowing those seeds. Those seeds will come back to you 100-fold, and you'll be able to reap the benefits of that. Not that that's the intent, but it's just a natural order of things, that how God has set it up. And so that's what I believe. That's what has helped me in my career and in my life. And, I stand by that 100%.
Well, I can attest to what you just said, and I do appreciate your friendship and also being a fraternity brother. And again, thanks so much, and I wish y'all would help me in thanking Dr. Jamil Northcutt for being a guest on the Sound the Horn Sports Show. We'll catch you soon, and y'all have a great day.
All right, thank you.
Welcome to Sound the Horn Sports Show. I'm so excited to host this groundbreaking program that will broaden the Jackson sports scene's awareness regionally and nationally. My goal is to highlight sports in Jackson, the state of Mississippi, and nationally by utilizing my 25 years of Division I athletic administration knowledge, and my guests will be experienced leaders in sports. The guest on the show will share a behind-the-scenes, unique, and informative glance of the world of sports. Please join me every Monday and Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on WeBelieveDigital.com.